If you haven't caught my comprehensive in-depth review of Scuf's latest $180 PC-only controller, the Envision, it's linked in the description below, and I recommend you start there because this video is a bit of a plug-in, an add-on, a DLC expansion pack, if you will, once you've already beaten the main campaign, which is the meaty review from 3 days ago where we break down this controller part by part, component by component. However, in this video, we're going to add to the pros list, we're going to add to the cons list, and I'm going to give you a little supplementary additional information about this gamepad, and at the end, I'm going to give you a couple of other recommendations if you're on the PC side of the house and you want to go a little bit below or above this price point. Let's get it.
This is your controller captain. We've reached 6,900 feet. Go ahead and start flicking the sticks and mollywopping the back paddles.
You don't like back paddles? How about those rear buttons? We've tested almost 100 custom and premium controllers and we're only at the beginning. You need a thumbstick guide or a tutorial on how to overclock your controller? Check out the controller playlist. Bing bong.
Controller captain out.
If you already bought the Envision or Envision Pro, sick. Those are both good gamepads and they do get a recommendation in the flagship or high-end department of PC controllers. However, we have a few more cons to shovel on and only one more pro to add, so that is going to kind of imbalance the review a little bit and indeed would chip off a couple of points, which I never gave a final grading to this controller. I just said, hell of a gamepad, more articulately and in-depth than that. But if the controller was a 9 at the end of my review from 3 days ago, it would now be an 8 because of these additional cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement that I've had time to bask, meditate by a koi pond on, and really reflect on Scuf's decisions here. These are in no particular order of importance. I'm just going to rattle them off. First of all, there is no gyroscope or motion sense aiming, which I didn't really mention during the review, or if I did, it was casually in passing because I don't use gyro ever, so a lot of times it's on the back of my noggin. It's not really a feature that I personally think about when I'm reviewing a controller. The comments section quickly reminded me, a slap aside the cheek, Kevin, wake up, brother. $180 controller with no gyro? Get your kneecaps blasted out. And I understand why a lot of PC players love that gyroscope motion aiming. Some players use it as their only means for aiming in competitive multiplayer, but usually what these PC controller players do is do their major movements with the thumbsticks, snap aiming, turning around, and then for those precise finite movements where you're sniping or you're trying to get those crosshairs right on that face so you can click them back to the shadow realm, that's what you're using that gyroscope motion for. Yet another reason that PC players generally, especially on the competitive side of the house, lean towards PlayStation 4 and 5 controllers. Between being superior with their overclock speeds, they also have that motion sense aiming and touchpad support where you can do Windows functions such as swiping through scenes in OBS and stuff like that. No gyroscope in a $180 controller. That is funky and should have been mentioned during the cons department. Next up, and this is a big one, Rick. I've been using that Negan voice a lot here recently. I don't know why. Picking my victim and then taking a baseball bat to the face of this controller until one of its thumbsticks is popped out of the socket. Walking Dead fans got the reference. Poor Glenn over here. $180 Pro controller with no magnetic Hall effect thumbsticks that can't get stick drift, or a swappable option if you do get stick drift, like what we're seeing with the DualSense Edge or the Victrix BFG. Granted, you can't get replacement modules. It's just to swap the thumbstick layout. Do you like offset Xbox sticks or symmetrical PlayStation sticks? Or do you want a fight pad over here for beating ass and fighting games? But unless PDP switched shit up since my review of the Victrix BFG, they don't sell replacement modules, so that's not really a stick drift fix. And there is no stick drift fix with this gamepad. And of course, there was a multitude of comments down there saying HE sticks or don't buy, or I would never pick up a controller that's more than $100 that could potentially get stick drift. And while I fully respect your decision there, the controllers that we've seen with HE sticks thus far have been subpar, part by part, in comparison to the controllers that do not have Hall effect sticks. And you have to keep in mind, these third-party custom, premium, and pro controllers that have been doing it for 3 console generations are just now getting on board with this HE technology, and thus far they haven't been calibrating the boards correctly, and they haven't been performing as good as potentiometer thumbstick modules. And you can still get stick drift with Hall effect thumbstick modules. It's much less likely because it's only a recentering spring that gives you that tension, that resistance, that spring-loaded feeling on the thumbsticks that you're used to, but you don't have potentiometer sensors or carbon contact patches. And while the future of controllers most likely is going back to HE sticks, keep in mind the Dreamcast controller right over my shoulder there used magnetic Hall effect thumbsticks, but it wasn't widely adopted because it's more expensive. It requires calibration that potentiometer drop-in thumbstick units do not. And of course, yes, these controller companies can make more money in the long run by having you, the consumer, need to run out and buy another $180 controller when it gets stick drift. However, that's not really the case, considering stick drift is completely randomized, much like a nasty, gonna take your life disease, completely randomized. There are things that can speed it up, such as the way you store your controller and the way you use it. How heavy-handed are you on the thumbsticks? Things like that. Do you click down L3 and R3, or do you bind those to a rear button? It's completely randomized. You'll see horror stories down there in the comment section. Then you've got people like me that always share their stories of, hey, I've been gaming on controllers for 28 years or so, probably more than that now. And I've only gotten stick drift on 4 controllers in my entire life. 2 of those were Elite cores right out of the box with stick drift. That's Microsoft's quality control issue. And the other 2 were gamepads that I had for like 6-7 years. By the time they got stick drift, I was well and ready for a new gamepad, for an upgrade. They were all gummed up and sticky and gross, had food mashed into the thumbsticks. They deserved stick drift at that point. But for a lot of you, that has not been your experience. You get stick drift on controllers after a month or 2, and I fully understand why you wouldn't want to run out and grab yourself a $200, $300, $400 gamepad that could get stick drift for you. Keep in mind, if you do develop stick drift, I do have a guide linked in the description below that walks you through some software programs on the PC to get rid of that stick drift for you. And if it's past the point of return with software programs and you need to actually get in there and clean off your potentiometer thumbstick modules, or God forbid, unsolder the units and resolder on modules, video tutorials for that coming in the near future as well, for the 2 people watching that would actually like to embark on that journey. It won't be fun for any of us. At that point, you probably just want to check your warranty policy. But let me just slash through a lot of this marketing hype and bluff. I really have so many thoughts I want to dive into right here, right now about HE thumbstick modules. Are they really more precise than potentiometer thumbstick modules? Actually, only a couple brands, and they need to be calibrated to reach that point of accuracy and precision. Boy, as you can tell, I'm getting sidetracked here, and you should subscribe because that is going to be a humdinger of a video where I'm going to be doing an interview with some of these companies that have developed this technology, such as GhouliKit, as well as physically disassembling potentiometer thumbstick modules and Hall effect thumbstick modules side by side, as well as discussing some scientific articles with my lab coat on as to the intricacies of these sticks. Will they get stick drift? Are they more accurate? Are they more expensive? Do you need to calibrate them? I hear so much misinformation floating around the internet, and I just smile and nod along usually until I release my videos where I correct all of it. I want to specify a couple of things. I'm not against controllers with magnetic Hall effect thumbsticks. In fact, I think that's the future of controllers, at least I hope it is, because those are much less susceptible to stick drift than potentiometer thumbstick modules, and when calibrated correctly, yes, they are more precise. They're usually in the 0% average error rate in the circularity test and have a perfect resting value. But the first batch of HE gamepads we saw were for the Switch only, and you could use an adapter to convert them to play on Xbox or PlayStation, but they had no Pro Controller features, no rear buttons, swappable thumbstick caps, or trigger stops. They were basically just standard Switch controllers. Then HYPR was the first custom controller company to offer HE sticks in their builder, and for a pretty good price at that. However, they were off to a bit of a rough start, and the first batch, if you will, wasn't the highest quality. But they now have recalibration boards soldered on the PCB, and they are on track with killer HE sticks. Modded Zone claims that they didn't get off to a rough start, but how could they not? They're a custom controller company doing something new that they've never done before. Yeah, there's going to be some growing pains, whether they want to admit it or not. And while I'm not against HE thumbsticks whatsoever, I am blatantly against this mentality that you should go for a gamepad that has HE sticks over a potentiometer gamepad just because of that one feature, because thus far, the controllers that have HE thumbsticks are just now catching up to the sweet grace that we have over here with the potentiometer gamepads. And I'm just trying to open some eyes here, you know, bird box, hold some people's eyes open to force them to see that not all HE sticks are created equal, and just because you see that feature slathered on the box does not mean you're not going to get stick drift, and it does not mean that those sticks are more accurate than potentiometer thumbsticks.
On the box. It should always be on the box, comforting you, calling out, I'm good. I'll never let you down. But if I do, I'm going to make things all better.
And if you're trying to take them into a competitive situation, good luck. And this is just my thoughts as of October 24th, 2023. The HE thumbsticks are the future, clearly, but you can't really rush the future, and it seems like that's what some of these custom controller companies are trying to do, and it's not really working out well for them and the customers that are buying their controllers. Woo! Back on target. The Corsair IQ software, not bad. We did a full tour of it in the comprehensive review. Something I didn't notice that I want to mention as a con is the fact that the RGB lighting doesn't have full control of the slider, but it jumps in 33% increments, so 0, 33, 66, and the one that follows that. I'd like to dial in and fine tune my brightness, please? Another major con, probably the biggest with this controller, the Achilles heel, if you will, is the fact that this is PC only, so one platform, which is unfortunate for a $180 controller. You'd like it to work on frickin' everything: iOS, Android, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, Steam Deck, everything, right? No, one platform, baby. Windows, Mac is not supported. Steve Jobs is rolling in his grave right now with a gamepad in hand. But what I wanted to touch on here is I did further testing because somebody in the comment section said, hey, with the Beloder Behavior controller you tested, that will allow you to use the controller. Unfortunately,
the lie detector test determined that was a lie.
Thank you. Thank you.
I updated the Beloder Behavior to the latest and greatest, the Scuf Envision's on the latest and greatest, the PS5, she's ripe and ready to trot, and I tried both the wireless dongle and the wired method with cords aplenty, tangled and crisscrossed over each other, and no, that doesn't work, and even if it did, at that point you're buying a $200 PS5 Pro controller. It's either 180 or 200. That doesn't change my point here. A $200 Pro controller to use it as an adapter. That's not like buying a $40 converter on Amazon. You're already buying a separate Pro controller to use this Pro controller. So that takes this from a $180 gamepad to a $380 gamepad. And at that point, you should be looking at speccing out a one-off custom with a lifetime warranty from AIM Controllers, or an esports freak B6 rear button ass slapper from Battle Beaver. You get what I'm saying? Not a pre-built, looks like everybody else's Scuf Envision from Best Buy if you're spending $380 on a gamepad, which a lot of you watching would never do anyway. Having tested the Behavior, I also did order a Cronus Zen from Amazon, which is a $100 converter, actually called a controller emulator because it's so in depth with the controller trickery, if you will, being able to use this controller that's not meant for this platform. And it's a good device for me to have on deck, but for most gamers, they wouldn't pick that up considering it's a $100 converter and its main primary feature is the use of mods, which I personally don't use, and I condemned the Shadow Realm in every video that I'm covering with a device that allows you to use mods in a multiplayer scenario. Just don't do it. It's that simple. But I will be testing the Cronus Zen because a gentleman or gentlewoman in the comment section said that the Cronus Zen either does work or should work, or they believe it works. Their comment implored me to buy one of the suckers, and I will be testing it in the near future. If it does work, I will make a short form video, and if it does not work, I will make a written post. So either way, in a day or two, we will all know for sure if there's any converter or adapter support for this controller on console, which as of now has been a big fat no. I've used 7 adapters from 3 different companies. I used the 8-bit Doe adapter, I used all of Brooks' lineup, like 3 or 4 different adapters, the Beloder Behavior, which is a $200 controller with a converter on board, and none of it works. So it is a PC only controller. Huge limitation because there are other gamepads out there that allow you to go cross platform, which is sick. The next one, I saw quite a few comments saying since it was polling rate locked that was a huge downside or con or limitation. I don't really think so, considering the stock input lag or delay on the Envision, whether you're going wired or wireless with that slipstream marketing gimmick wireless, is going to be 2 milliseconds of input lag or delay, which is only 1 millisecond away from an overclocked PlayStation controller, which is the top of the food chain. So that's not even a big deal that this is polling rate locked. And the last con that I'm going to touch on that I didn't even mention during the video is this little swipe pad, this touchpad up here is just for cosmetics. It does feel velvety smooth, like suede on the fingertips. That's cool, but it's not a functional D-pad. I meant touchpad, which sucks for PlayStation game compatibility, considering a lot of SIE titles are now getting ported over to the PC. It ain't just Days Gone and Horizon anymore. Sony has said they want to port about 60% of their library over to PC. And what are you going to do when you don't have swipe or touchpad functionality, which is baked into most of these PlayStation games? On top of that, PC programs such as DS4 Rewas allow you to have 5 separate Windows functions to the swipe pad, one for each of the directions you swipe in, and usually clicking down on the pad as well, which this one doesn't click in at all. It's just flush because, well, it's not a touchpad or button. It's just a decoration. That's a fat con, should have been mentioned during the review. But a huge pro we need to add to the pro section is the fact that it's not just the G buttons that allow you to add Windows specific functionality such as switching scenes in OBS, launching applications, changing sound sources, running your stream. Basically, it is all the buttons on this controller. These sax buttons on the side, you can set that to a keyboard function. These rear buttons over here, you can launch an application with those. Really cool because usually you need to install a program called Rewas to do that. It's $7 to unlock most of the good features, and it's a third-party program which is trusted, but it's not as trusted as a first-party app from the controller. But that was worth a note that you have a lot of PC-specific control with this gamepad. gamepad. A major update has come out since the review, which was just 3 days ago. Click on check updates, it'll be available for you. And one of the things that I noticed it did is you can actually full screen the application for real now without that gray border over here. The only exception to that is on the home screen. You do still have that gray dead space over there, but every other menu fills out the screen. Having added all this supplementary information to this gamepad, I will say that it's a little bit less savory. The fact it doesn't have gyroscope, doesn't have touchpad, doesn't have magnetic Hall effect thumbsticks or a swappable option, and you still don't have any console support yet. I am hopeful that down the road, some of these adapter companies such as Brook Accessories will push that sweet firmware patch, hopefully with a big message for all of us so we know that it's out there, that we can now use this gamepad on consoles. And I will let the world know via a short form video when that's the situation for us. That'll be a fun day for us for sure. Now, while you thought the Envision Pro has had its day in court, it's actually being pulled back in for jury duty. It's actually taken the stand personally, as the Envision Pro for PC only is going to be compared to the Reflex, the PlayStation 5 controller from Scuf, as well as the Instinct, the Xbox controller from Scuf. Keep in mind there's pro variants of both of those gamepads that add a little bit of sweetness. Well, basically rubber grips and trigger stops. I'm going to compare those three gamepads part by part and explain which one I think provides the most value. The answer will surprise you, but to not waste your time, it's not the Envision Pro, which I do still think is a fantastic gamepad, but it is a PC-specific gamepad, whilst both the Instinct and the Reflex can be converted or adapted to be playable on any platform, PC included. So, and it's not like the Envision's pack and Hall effect sticks or something that was a big difference from the current offerings, other than that new shell design, which feels very good, and having 11 additional inputs. You got sax buttons and G buttons and all these extra doodads and bits, but it's only for PC. And lastly, I'm going to sign this video off with a couple of additional options for controllers in cheaper price points and the same price point as this controller, in case you don't like the Envision. It just doesn't work out for you. You don't like the fact that it's PC only, or you don't like the fact that it's Scuf, even though they did double their warranty. Starting in the entry-level price point, which for me is going to be $60 or cheaper, because that is the price of a standard Xbox controller, and if you don't mind going wired, you can usually find some pretty good gamepads in this price point. The GameSir G7 and G7 SE aren't just pretty decent gamepads in this price point. They're actually very good and really do well exceed their asking price of $40 and $45 respectively. Both those reviews are linked in the description below. Next up is probably my strongest, most solid recommend for PC, and that is going to be any of the FlyDigi controllers, but specifically in the model lineup, the Vader 3 Pro, the one that's a dark gray with blue around the anti-friction rings. Sick gamepad. Probably my favorite gamepad. If I had to answer that grand question, just one gamepad to rule them all for my Lord of the Rings fans out there, which for me, I'm not that kind of guy where I just can pick one gamepad. I mean, if I were that person, I wouldn't have a wall behind me of controllers and then an additional 20 something gamepads on the wall in the living room. But the Vader 3 Pro, because it has gyroscope, it has good battery life, it has magnetic Hall effect thumbstick modules, it's got clicky mechanical face bits, it's got trigger stops, it has pretty much everything the Envision does and then some for $80. So you might be thinking to yourself, why the shit would I buy the Envision Pro, ho? Well, let's get past the title and prestige of the fact that FlyDigi is China's #1 gamepad and is kind of known for being just cheap gamepads, for lack of a better word. Not bad, but cheap gamepads. And then you've got Scuf, which is owned by Corsair, one of the longest running custom controller companies, stretching all the way back to the 360 and PlayStation 3 era. Getting past that, I don't care about the name. We're not paying for the Ferrari badge here. We want to know about the performance. Does it handle good? Yeah, the FlyDigi Vader 3 would outperform the Envision Pro in pretty much every aspect except having those 11 additional inputs with the G keys and the sax buttons. Furthermore, I'm a bigger fan of the Envision's rear buttons over the FlyDigi's. All the FlyDigi controllers use the same rear buttons, and the Scuf Envision and Envision Pro use the same rear buttons. They're both okay, but not great, but I would say the Envision is less okay and more good. And then in the high-end or flagship, the $180 plus controllers, you do have the Envision over here, which is a good gamepad, but you're restricted to one platform, as where you could go with something like the HYPR Signature or the AIM V3, and those will work on PS5, PC, and then with adapters or converters, Xbox and Switch as well. Reviews for all the controllers I mentioned are linked in the description below. If you want a little bit more detail, you want my full thoughts on all of these gamepads. Thank you for watching this plugin, this add-on, and if you haven't, please check out the original review because it goes much more in depth with this gamepad, and I will see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow, hopefully, if you're going to catch that video, but if not, subscribe and I'll see you for the Scuf 3-way controller shootout because I know you're interested in that one because you're watching this video. Drop in the comment section below your opinion of this gamepad, or if you have an experience to share of your own, some information that I don't know about because I am only one man with one small brain. So if you've gotten this thing working on console, maybe you have the Beloder Xavier controller and you've gotten it working, share with us the steps because I did the steps that the manufacturer Beloder explains to do with their controllers and it didn't work for me. But maybe you did something that the manufacturer didn't intend and you got it working. Share that with the Stallions and Stallionettes, please, because this gamepad deserves to be on console. Speaking of console, I've been playing Spider-Man 2 on the PS5, and holy shit, review coming in the near future for that. Also, before I sign off, there's going to be giveaways aplenty because we are knocking, not on heaven's door, but on 100,000 subscribers, which we'll be hitting in like a day or two. Unless people just completely stop subscribing, which don't do that because that would be silly. Okay. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers. This information will reach and assist them as well, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, as well as honest gaming product reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, etc. There are some hefty exclusive discount codes found only in the description of my videos and only for the audience here at GamerHeaven. I have links to all my other platforms and socials in the description below. To get in touch with myself and the Stallions and Stallionettes of GamerHeaven, join the community Discord, and check me out at twitch.tv where I go live every other leap year on a blue moon if it falls into an odd calendar number, and my pH balance is on point. Just kidding, starting June I'm going to be live streaming a lot. Thanks for watching. This has been AK40 Kevin hosting GamerHeaven, and I'll see you tomorrow because I upload daily, all the time, 60% of the time, sometimes, most of the time. Peace.